Well, today I'm going to work on cab mount body bushings, and I bought a whole set on the online auction site, and I really only needed the two for the front core support since those were shot. The cab mounts were actually pretty decent, but you might as well just buy a full set by the time you pay for just the two that you need. So here's the full set, and I'm working on the truck now. So here's the front where the core support attaches, and I've got the front pretty well cleaned up. I hope to get some paint on this frame today. Here's the front body mount of the cab, and as you can see, they're actually in pretty decent shape, but I went and cut the bolt on the bottom. I didn't even try to get a wrench on there, and the top part of the bolt is already out. Now I just need to jack up my cab a little bit. I've got my floor jack. I'm going to put a little block of wood vertically under here, put a little pressure on the cab. Right, just a little 1x4 is all it took, a little short piece, and my cab is already off of the body mount. So the bolt is out, and the rubber portion's being a little stubborn, so I decided to take a Sawzall, and I'm in the process of cutting. Okay, that worked out pretty well. Now, both bushings, top and bottom, are gone, so I've got a nice, clean body mount. So what I'm going to do is take a wire wheel, and I'm just going to clean up to these surfaces that I wouldn't otherwise be able to get into if the body mount was in place. As I mentioned on a previous video, right before this sold, there was some rubberized undercoating blown on the frame, and it was kind of a half-assed job at best. And in most cases, as I clean up the frame with a wire wheel, that stuff just kind of flakes off as well. So, and then my chassis saver actually painted really well over the top of this, at least on the back end of the frame. So I'm just kind of scuffing, taking the easy stuff off, including the places that didn't have any of that undercoating, and then the chassis saver really does a nice job of coating. So now I'm going to put my bushings in. Okay, back to the new parts. There was no instruction sheet in the box. However, there is a very detailed illustration where I bought these, and so just using that illustration, I grouped these by core support. There's the front of the cab, and there's the rear of the cab, and now I'm just getting myself familiar with the parts and how they go on. This piece gets inserted from inside the cab from the top down. Then the next piece will be here with this large washer on top. Okay, now I'm going to let the cab down just a little bit so that I can insert the bottom collar or bushing and the other rubber bushing that goes underneath, and then that'll be followed by a washer and a small washer and the lock. Okay, one final thing on this corner before I move to the other three corners. Here's the old bushing, and this is the one that goes right underneath the cab. You can see the difference in height. There's at least a 1/4 inch, maybe even about a 3/8 inch difference now that the cab is the full weight is down on the bushing. So I'm actually glad that I'm going to replace all 6 and not just the front 2 on the core support like I originally needed to. So if you don't want to reuse any of these parts, one cut, about 2 minutes worth of cutting with a Sawzall and a sharp hacksaw blade, and you can have this removed. Otherwise, I know if you want to reuse some of these parts, I know it is a little more time consuming. There's the front of the cab, and it's all tightened down. And here is the rear of the cab with both pieces. Everything's tightened down. Well, now that the cab is up on new bushings, I spent a little bit of time underneath the cab and on the side of the frame again. Man, it's a dirty job, but I got a little more scale and rust off, and I'm getting really close to being able to shoot my chassis saver on the front side of this truck, on the frame and under the cab. I'm just going to clean up some tools and clean up the ground a little bit, and I'll probably be shooting some paint here within the hour. So one thing I wanted to point out while it's out in the open is that this steering wheel on this truck was out of alignment when I bought it, and I'm guessing that it's probably more so now that I put that 2-inch lift on this truck with the steering linkage. The angle changed just slightly with that 2-inch lift. So this is where you adjust the steering linkage so that your steering wheel is aligned inside the cab. So before I get my core support, my fenders and everything put back together, I wanted to make sure that if this was seized and rusted up, that I took advantage of this being out in the open and clean it up and have it readily available to adjust when the truck is ready to go down the road. So here's the bottom side of the cab that I was working on a moment ago, and I just took a wire wheel to it to get the loose rust and scale off. And I also roughed up the side of the frame a little bit too. Took some of that undercoat off that was hanging on there. And I'm gonna shoot some chassis saver under here in a moment. So here is after 2 coats. Still has a little bit of a shine to it. This is satin black, so it will dry to a satin finish. So check it out tomorrow morning.